Great tidings. It's Saturday again, and we want to say welcome to our podcast. This is the Gracious Hope Live podcast, and today is about the Prince Johnson factor. Who is Prince Johnson? Well, Prince Johnson is a senator representing Nimba County, and he is in the Senate. He has been there for a number of years now, but we know he's popular for participating in the Liberian Civil War with the Independent National Patriotic Front. And he was the one who captured the ex-president Samuel Doe, who was eventually murdered or killed. And our country has been going through turmoil, and there was transitional governments in between, interim governments, and later on a democratic election in which Charles Taylor won, and of course he was later on booted out by opposing forces, and it was a tumultuous time until the international community intervened, and there was a democratic election, and so President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf took the helm of power for 2 terms, and now we have President George Weah as the president of the country. And in a few months from now, we will be going to the polls. That is, voters will be voting for a new national leadership, and that will include the House and the presidency. And so Liberians are now, feeling very tense, especially recently when a group of men joined together in a fatigue or whatever the camouflage or uniform they had, chanting a slogan of the CDC and also the NPP, that is the National Political Party of the Patriotic Front, as well as the current incumbent or the incumbent President George Weah's party, CDC, Coalition for Democratic Change, CDC. And they march on the premises of Senator Prince Johnson, who is now professed to give his entire life to Christ, and he's now minister of the gospel. He has a chapel where he worships with his followers, and these CDC and NPP partisans went there calling on him to saying a lot of things. I know you hear somebody in the video, but they were calling on war crime code, and they disrupted the entire service that Sunday, which of course it is widely condemned by the Liberia Council of Churches, the Association of Liberian Journalists in the Americas, and other religious leaders, including citizens and those who advocate for peace and tranquility in our country as we head to the national elections this year. And so it behooves us on this podcast to talk about the Prince Johnson factor. And the factor we'll be talking about is a lot of Liberians know him as participant of the Civil War and the recent incident and his current position as a senator representing Nimba County. And we will look at some of the things that cause the current uproar around his church or chapel, and we'll look at other things that are factors that Liberians need to know in order to prevent or to, when I say prevent, what is going on, because this is a stark reminder of what we have been through as a country in our history, all of the upheavals, and Liberians are now wanting peace to transition to a leadership that will govern them with peace, love, and have the country developed in a way to benefit all of society. And so today we have a distinguished guest. He is Mr. Stanford Bush Chicken Peabody. That's how we call him. And that is his name. And he is a businessman and also a consultant of agro business. That is he's a consultant of agro business, as well as he also a former publisher of the Bush Chicken magazine. And so he is versed with the situation on the ground, and he will provide analysis and make us to understand what is really going on in that incident and also things that are surrounding everything that is going on. So we will be bringing him in the studio here. But before I do that, Reverend Suarez Dede is the co-host of this program. And Reverend Dede, here we see this news or heard this news about people surrounding the chapel or the church house of Senator Prince Johnson. And this is causing some uproar about the disruption of service, worship service. Yeah, it is just exciting in a way.
Indeed, indeed. In any case, we will say this is the day the Lord has made. We're going to rejoice and be glad in it. You and I know where violence brought our country to. We had several years of violence because people somewhat or kind of took the laws into their own hands. In a society where people will do what they want to do at their will, and nothing seems to happen, it creates concern in the minds of peaceful, loving people. Some Liberians are peaceful, loving, and some don't care about the safety and serenity of our country. So this situation is not a new one. If you can recall, in July of 2022, when some members of the Student Unification Party, SUP, of the University of Liberia, who had gathered on the grounds of the U.S. Embassy to engage in a peaceful protest against the government, were violently attacked by CDC / council patriots. And we know that student Christopher Osivilli of SUP was brutalized, according to the news. We don't know what happened after that. So when this kind of situation keeps rearing its head and nothing happens, people tend to feel they can do anything and nothing happens. And this is where people who the Liberal Council of Churches and AJA are voicing out. I'm sure other people will speak against this situation, are voicing out so that we don't go back to where we came from, the dark ages of our country. None of us want that. Nobody wants to see that in the country, and that's why this discussion is very important, Alex. And I'm glad we have this our friend who is on the ground, who knows what's going on, who will give a fresh information to us based on what has happened, what is happening now, what is going on with the investigation, if there's any investigation. And we look forward to this discussion, and we hope that this kind of situation, Alex, will stop, because we don't want to go back to where we came from, Alex.
Yes, we don't want to go back. And so our guests will be coming up, but let's just play this little clip here and hear what these group of people are doing here, so people can have a gist or understanding of what's going on. I know most people are aware of it. However, we'll just play just 2 minutes here, and our guests will be coming in to provide us with some analysis regarding the incident that took place at Senator Prince Johnson Church on the Sunday during worship service. So let us play that.
One can have a procedure by going to the referral authority, but they brought channel. The owner is not refused to go to work, but this kind of attitude cannot bring work. This attitude is shown to others. There is no peace in this country. It's wrong. It's wrong.
The dwellers have come to watch his wife and everyone else that are living the scene here. The guys. This is unbelievable. The premises of the Liberia broadcasting system is not going to be used. Well, we wait and see what's going to happen here. Whether they're going to use this side to issue whatever statement they have.
Come to all of us, we are on a more mandate to examine our numbers. Today, the editor youth council, we are telling him that you should never put more on our political leader anymore. However, not to bore you, we have achieved our primary objective for the fact that we have the press here. Our message will resonate on federal ground because we have achieved the purpose of telling him that we can use the same Bible as he's using. Having said that, not to board you, we have in our midst, Kwame Agalor, our topic, who is the indomitable, irrefragable National Patriotic Party Secretary General, who were clamors, the brief address, and for years, many things were took away to the NPP headquarters. Many things were took away to the NPP headquarters. For years, many things were took away to the NPP headquarters because we were trying to protect our leaders. And because we were trying to protect our leaders, today we are here in our Ganganduan, making sure that the People's Revolutionary Mandate are upheld. They are only uphold, but making sure that we tell the protect President George Manneh we are to attend Monday. Having said that, coming today, the press is here to come at this all auspicious program.
Thank you, and
Okay, so we just at least got a glimpse of what's going on here between these group of men who intentionally stepped their foot on the premises of the church of Senator Prince White Johnson, demanding war crime code, and they had other things to say. And so we'll be looking into that, and it's a pleasure to have our special guest here, Mr. Stanford Peabody, known as Bush Chicken, a consultant for agro business. He's a businessman as well, and he's also a former publisher of the Bush Chicken magazine. We'd like to say welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great, great. Now, we watched the video and we heard a condemnation from the Liberian Council of Churches, AJA, and other groups, and even important or distinguished citizens within our country. They said the timing was very wrong on the part of the group that came from CDC and NPP. It was so wrong to go to a church while people in service to demand or to disrupt that service. What is your take on it so far regarding that incident?
Well, thank you very much, Pastor Red. You know, there is an adage that says that where your right ends, another person's right begins. Just by virtue of the fact, you know, we gotta be very objective because we don't know like who's listening, so we gotta be very objective in this talk. You know, like you have your right to protest. If you have protested here at Bay Junction or maybe in Logan Town, fine. But as far as protesting on the premises of Prince Johnson's church, you know, that was totally wrong for whatever reasons. The bad part is that all the condemnations can be made, but there has been no arrest and nobody has been, you know, brought to book or responsible for what has happened. You see, I can remember during the war when Charles Taylor thought he had the biggest gun, and because of that, there was a proliferation of warring factions. And this is the kind of thing that can happen. The deceit in our country is too much, you know, because the people who paid those boys, they must have known better. You know, Prince Johnson has been around for 12 years. I mean, for many years. As a matter of fact, he's been with, he's been with the CDC for the past almost 5-6 years. When did they get to know that Prince Johnson had to go to the war crime court? You see, so these are the kind of things we have to call out, because you know, like they say, good people only speak when bad things happen. But we don't have Mother Dugley anymore. We don't have Archbishop Francis anymore. Of course, Yeka is there, but there must be, you know, like when you come to this situation, you must come with clean hands. So Yeka will yell and do everything, people like him, but you know, his advocacy will be limited by his background. So that's the kind of situation we have in this country right now that's giving us a hard time. What happened at Prince Johnson's church was wrong. It's being condemned, but the people who are responsible must also be brought to book, because if it's not like so many things that be happening in this country and we don't see the end, that's another bad thing. But for this particular issue now that we're looking at, it's terrible. Another thing too is that maybe they were thinking that Prince Johnson was going to act irrationally or make some irrational statements, and then he was going to be looked at awkwardly, maybe by Liberians in the international community. But in his speech, uh, Senator Johnson said, we're not going to do anything to plunge the country back into war. Because if Prince Johnson had said, I'm going to bring 1,000 men now, or I want to bring 5,000 men now, you will see people trooping from everywhere to Prince Johnson's church.
Mhm.
He didn't make that mistake. That was a mistake that maybe they had calculated he would make. But all in all, this does not augur well for our. That's the reason why all these politicians went to Farmington to sign that declaration that says that nobody will institute violence, nobody will institute any kind of wrong things that could plunge the country into war. What happened under the guise of a protest actually was a basis for disturbance, violence. When you have a right to protest, protest where you can. You don't have to protest on the man's premises. He violated the man's premises, and that could have caused a lot of problems. I think those questions, whoever sent those people, whoever was responsible for them going there, who are the people that went there? I think you've heard it already. The police director was called, but I don't know if he actually sent reinforcements.
Okay, our guess is off a little bit. The internet situation in our country, Ravi, that is
Yes, indeed. It's a serious, it's a very serious thing. It's a very serious thing. We keep
yes.
having this problem where we have the guests on, and then we're gonna lose them because of the internet. It happened to Larry Tupai. I mean, I don't want to go through the whole list of people. Who, but that's the situation we have, Ellis, and that's why instead of all of this agitation, we should be focusing on peace, retention in
Yeah.
our country, so that we rebuild the country. It's something as internet it keep creating problems for people who have
Yeah.
who have something to offer. But the point he made, at least the point he made about Prince Johnson's reaction to the situation, speaks volume to someone who does not want to see any sort of violence in the country again. I mean, Prince Johnson is not perfect. None of us is perfect, but he was at his place of worship, where he has the constitutional right to assemble, to worship freely, as Aja mentioned in a reaction. I see my friend is back. I will just speak briefly
Yeah.
and then go back to him, where he did not respond as people thought he would have responded. Because even though you talk about summoning some 500 men, maybe next Sunday, we don't know what's going to happen when that happens. If those NPP people went back there, we don't know what's going to happen. So we have to try to stay clear of violence in our country. So let's go back to Stanford to continue his discussion, his comments.
Yeah. Stanford,
Yeah, thank you.
if you listen, you're talking. Go ahead.
Yeah, so like the Farmington Accord, if you read it, it talks about all these politicians signing a declaration saying that we're not going to do anything that will involve violence and rioting and all that kind of stuff. Everybody signed. So these people who sent the protesters, if they had protested EAW Junction, red light, or anywhere against Prince Johnson or for Prince Johnson to go to war crime court, that would have been beautiful. But how can they go at his church on his ground? I mean, I'm sure he has a deed for that church. Why do they have to, transverse that boundary and go to his church and disturb the peace of his church? That is very, 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 very not acceptable at all. And the reason why it's not even acceptable, these things have copycats. Let's assume tomorrow. You know how many government do we want to see a repeat at various churches across Monrovia for this kind of disturbance? No, nobody wants any disturbance like that. So it's very good that the powers that be, the authorities, nip this in the bud by calling out the people who organize our protests and then arresting the people who went on the grounds and disturbed the peace and violated the law. That's the kind of thing that's supposed to be done so that other people will not tamper with breaking the law like that. Otherwise, if nothing happens, then how are you going to arrest people tomorrow who try to reciprocate that kind of protest or violence? It's going to be difficult. See? So that's the kind of thing
Yeah, and it's important, Reverend Dede, that he stressed that, because the thing is, we can see that incident regarding church and disruption, and thinking about the Lutheran church massacre. Remember, there were soldiers who went in the church and massacred people. So it's a reminder for all Liberians to understand that there should be a deterrence. That is, there should be a probe. Let it find out who sent those men, and the timing was wrong. Nobody said that you don't have the right to protest. You can do that, but the timing was not appropriate. And besides that, nobody wants to see the church ransacked and then disturb worship. So then we will look at our nation today and look at church disruption, the Lutheran massacre in the church, and this is going on. It is just something that we Liberians will have to actually strongly condemn, and also it is upon the government shoulder right now, like the security apparatus, to do something about it, like probing, so that this cannot happen, another time. Because the church is a sanctity of worship. It's a place that people worship, Reverend Dede.
I mean, 100%. I mean, talking about worship, I was just looking at the scripture, just kind of meditate on it in Matthew 26, 52 to 54. And then Jesus said to him, put your soul back into its place. Some scripture say, put the souls back in the plowshares. It means the issue of violence, the issue of tooth for tooth, eye for eye, the issue of going at each other does not bring us the peace that we need in our country. And especially at this time, and I'll follow up my question with Stanford. At this time, we would have thought we would see or hear about some sort of investigation to know what really happened. Everything is right on the video. Faces are on the video. There's nothing behind the scene or hidden. But now we would have thought in a society with law and order, where man is not above the law, we would have thought that incident is on investigation. Maybe it's on investigation, but it's not in the public's glare yet. So if there's an investigation going on, the public needs to know, so as to send that semblance of peace and law and order in our country, so people cannot be constantly afraid. Okay, I made mention of the July 2022 incident with SUP students. Okay, up to now, we don't know what happened, whether there was an investigation that occurred after that, nothing. So we are saying, Alex and Stanford, this thing has got to stop. We don't want to see our country degenerate into something else, and then we blame ourselves. I watched the video, portion of the video, when one of the speakers said they went to the place on the invitation of Senator Chris Johnson, because he made a public he issued a public invitation to people to come because he had a statement to make. So they were coming based on an invitation, but then the mannerism that exhibited does not show somebody who was there for on a peace a peace mission. So we're gonna be careful here. This is our country, the only country we have. We cannot keep playing with the destiny of our country, with the things we do to ourselves, Alice. I mean, this is a serious matter. We hope, and that's why Aja is calling on the government to probe this situation, investigate, okay, and see where it goes, so that perpetrators can be brought to justice to answer to why they did what they did, Alex.
What, and then Stanford, our guest here, what predicated this whole thing to happen? Wasn't it the vice president to the current government made a political statement against the opposition that triggered this?
Yeah, you know, like since the Unity Party um, went through the process and got their their vice standard bearer, there has been a lot of kickback against that, since in fact the vice standard bearer, Mr. Jeremiah Kwan, is seen as a protege of Prince Johnson, right? And Prince Johnson, as you all know, has been scared, or has been this war crime thing has been some use to hang over his head. But now that he has decided to move and disassociate himself from the ruling CDC, um, all kinds of things are being done in order to lure him back by frightening him. So this war crime chant was, besides the statements made by um, Vice President Joel Howard Taylor, that Prince Johnson, is a war criminal and all that, for which also Prince Johnson responded to her saying like, like, are you calling me a war criminal? You really call me a war criminal? So this kind of back and forth, like, and that's the thing that the war crimes court and the economic crimes court was supposed to do in the initial stages. So we don't have all these people in our midst. But unfortunately, it didn't work like that. So now we have economic criminals, we have war criminals, all working with normal people, and like it would not work. It would, for example, how people like you and myself and Swat, how are we supposed to how are we supposed to co-mingle with those people or any of the other people in government? How are they supposed to manage? Because those people, I'm telling you, people who come from that uh, persuasion, they are very, very different. They're not used to coming to consensus. They're not used to getting things by hard work. They thrive in the violence and disorder of governments, right? They're used to commanding people to do things that are not supposed to be done. So when they come to a place where order is, they cannot function. So they continuously provide events of order so that they can benefit. And that's what's continuing in our society. Unfortunately, there are not enough people to decry and say that this is enough, this is not correct. And the reason for that is these people pay people off. Do you know what it means to some? As a matter of fact, like now, there are people who their jobs are being taken away because of their affiliation with different groups. Some people are flirting, with their jobs because they are not free to speak. And in a country where people are not free to speak or associate, people don't rise to the level of their abilities. It's almost like, whipping children. When you whip a child or when you whip children for everything they do, they become scared to even talk. And because they cannot talk,
Yeah.
they cannot express themselves, they cannot show their abilities, and then like children leave from here and go to America, you were like, that Peking was here, he was nothing. But he reached in America and he's everything. That's because America provides the level playing field for people to achieve their fullest, which is the opposite in Liberia. Politicians cannot achieve their fullest. Government officials cannot achieve their fullest. Everybody afraid to express themselves because if you express yourself, your daily bread is going to go away. That's not a good country. That's not a good country.
So, will you say that the vice president instigated this whole uproar and by calling Prince Johnson or emphasizing that he's a warlord? And many people are also pointing out her that yes, she formerly was married to a warlord, Charles Taylor, who is already in prison for war crimes.
As a matter of fact, when they, like I start to see attacks against the vice president, as soon as she made those statements, I started to see attacks on Facebook and on the radio against the vice president for making the remarks that she made. She made the remarks against boycott, and then she took it down to Prince Johnson. She's not, she, like she didn't really calculate her statements before she aired them. So those statements are, she's been hit really hard from the Unity Party. She's like all kinds of things are coming out against her because of this miscalculations in her statements that she made. Like based on what she knows and what everybody knows, it would have been good for her to temper her statements.
Yeah.
But she has a record for those kind of statements. Like in the past, she said, "It's our time to eat." I mean, what does that calculate? What does that interpret to, or what does it mean? It's our time to
Hmm.
eat. For coming from somebody way up there, it's our time to eat. All these people suffering, and you saying that this is who time is it to eat? You see, so those statements, like sometimes she miscalculate, and then she said the vice president was a parked car. Now she's in his
Hmm.
government and she is decrying President Weah because she's not getting what she's supposed to get. But that's how that's the life of the vice president. Is she now a part car? So she's been making these miscalculations, and now they're coming back to on her full scale. It's a full scale attack on the vice president now because of those words that she uttered.
So the question somebody would ask is that since you're on the ground, you have your ears on the ground, you might be familiar or aware of what's happening. Have you heard of any investigation by the Justice Ministry or the Liberian National Police into this matter?
No, well, I cannot say that it does not exist or is not happening, but I've seen no indication in the print media or I've heard no indication on the radio about anything, to that effect. So if it was something that, like it's almost like a January 6th thing in the U.S. These people were in, full view of the public. They got videos of them. There is no way to say that we don't know who did this. All you have to do, you find them, you question them, and you find the genesis of this, and then you bring the once you get to the genesis or to the bottom, then you question those people, or you bring them to court, or bring them to wherever that they can answer to their offenses. It will,
Mhm.
quite this issue that happened at Prince Johnson's church had the propensity, to cause violence and people could have died. And then again, our name, our country's name, we're going to be in the news about death due to politics, and that's not good. So the
And
politicians have to be very, very
Yeah.
just
careful,
yeah, and just before we get to our next
with
question here,
how
let's take a
how they
break here.
steer this country.
All right, if you're just watching us, this is the Gracious Hope Live podcast. My name is Pastor Alexander Red here with Reverend Suarez Dede, and we have a special guest here, Mr. Stanford Peabody, who is giving us the understanding of the uneventful situation at the chapel of Nimba County Senator Prince White Johnson, recently. And that's what we are talking about. And you can make a comment. You can express what you think about the situation and what we can do to preserve the peace. We'll be right back. Please share this link. We'll be right back with our guests. All right, we are back here. We are back. Okay, Reverend Dede, the situation is very, very, very dangerous in the sense that provoking a former warlord, it is something that is a reminder of every one of us. The war, went on for years and thousands of lives. It just was lost. Our lives were lost, and here we are again, witnessing this unexpected event. But you see, the Farmington Accord, from what I understand, it was for all of them to agree, and they all agreed to sign a paperwork regarding peace. And there will be no violence, there will be no upheavals, and that everyone will live in peace. And so it is important that we all keep the peace individually, from the community level to the societal level and everywhere, to keep that peace. Okay, Dede?
Fair enough. And Ellis, keeping the peace means everyone will exercise self-control, due diligence, avoid unnecessary statements or actions that will degenerate into something else. Working for peace means you can criticize your brother or sister, but with the mind to listen and then find a common ground. That is the way to peace. But the way to peace will never be attained if people want to come at you because of what you said, even though you might be right, but that other things you say sometimes, whether you are right or wrong, exacerbate the situation, puts gasoline into the fire. We don't want that in Liberia, Ellis. We don't want that anymore. You and I were there. We experienced the war. Yes, we may be out of the country now, but we experienced the war. We suffered it. We lost loved ones in the war. So no one will even think about taking us back to where we were. So if you are responding to Prince Johnson's reaction against what Vice President Joel Howard Taylor said, coming to his place of worship, okay, doing what you did that we saw in the video, is aggravating. Let's face it, it's aggravating. If that had happened on the NPP ground or the CDC control government grounds, that people from the church will come there and do what they did, it would have degenerated into something else. It would have led to something else. So peace is something that we all work towards intentionally to make sure we keep the tempo down and accentuate the good things amongst us. Because at the end of the day, unless we are all Liberians, we cannot afford to keep hurting each other because we feel we can speak, we can talk, we can protest any way we want to protest, even unconstitutionally. It gives us no grounds to keep doing what some of us tend to do in the country. And this is why we are concerned. All of us are concerned about what happened because somebody else might want to do that, Alex. And who knows? It might go into something, it might go in the wrong direction, and we find ourselves in a place that we don't want to be. So we gotta be mindful, gotta be careful, gotta be very, very calculated in what we do so that we don't take our country back to the dark ages, but rather push our country, prepare our country in a direction where we all will enjoy it, whether home and abroad. What is happening right now, and then the law enforcement, for me to be blunt, is not helping the situation. Okay, I'm talking about past occurrences. Maybe they're investigating this one, Alice, but past occurrences, we have not heard about any conclusive investigation and the results from those investigations. And that's what people want to see. When that happens, people will begin to respect the laws of the country, begin to respect law enforcement, and will have that semblance of stability, that semblance of comfort and peace in the country, and people will live a peaceful life. But right now, it is difficult, Alex. It is difficult. You don't know what happened.
Yeah, it is difficult. It
Investigation.
is
Yes,
difficult.
yes,
That's true.
yes.
And now, Senator Prince Johnson, because he feels threatened, he is now he had an announcement up that he's going to have at least 300 men at his church just for protection. He never had that, but now he's going to have them
He
there
said
just to protect
500,
him.
Alex. He said 500 men.
500,
Yes,
500
500 men.
men. Okay,
I'm
sorry for
telling
that.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
500 men. So it creates tension. It creates tension. But let me ask our guest here, Stanford, Mr. Stanford Peabody. Now let's look at it, Johnson. Okay, it seems like he's dominant in Liberian politics. He supported the CDC, and then he gave more votes for the past election. And a lot of political leaders consulted him all along, even consulting him all along the way for this election. And now someone from his county, who is a senator, also in the national legislature, Mr. Kuhn or Senator Kuhn is the vice president or running mate to Mr. Boaka, who is the chair of the United Party. Now, do we see Prince Johnson as significant in Liberian politics? What are some of the things that Liberian people are overlooking in this man? Whereas he has been making strides in the political arena all along. What are they overlooking about him?
What are they overlooking about Mr. Prince Johnson?
Prince Johnson, yes. And given the fact that he was elected as a senator for his county, and he has been in the center of attention, or at the center of attention for consultation. Even George, we are consulting him. He said that he had agreement to have Nimba delivered to him, and in return to develop his county and bring investment in. According to Prince Johnson, nothing was done for the entire time of the WEA presidency, and so he withdrew to give his support to Mr. Boaka. Now Prince Johnson is consulted. In his through the consultation, now we see someone from his county is now the vice running mate, and a lot of people are not happy about it because he continues to play this kind of a dominant role, like a godfather in the political game of our country. Now, for you, why people are still talking to him and thinking that they're overlooking him in a way, but if you look at his results, he is a dominant factor in Liberian politics. So, what are they missing about him?
Well, Prince Johnson is he's a very shrewd character. In order for him to still be alive after that brutal civil war, it means that you got to gain something, some credit for being very smart in a sense. I was in Nimba in 2017 when Prince Johnson escorted the current president around Nimba on the campaign trail, and he talked to people. As a matter of fact, at one point he mentioned Joseph Boyka, who he said was that he did not do anything to help the people of Nimba when they were being killed. That I can remember that direct quote. So at that time, apparently, it was in his interest to have Mr. Weah as president in order to protect him from the war crime court. That has been one of the issues. As a matter of fact, anytime Prince Johnson strayed from the graces of Mr. Johnson, the war crime court issue comes up, it's put up in order to put him back in line. But apparently now it's getting to the point where his people are telling him, like, we're not benefiting from this presidency. I think there's not a lot of things going on in Nimba as far as this government is concerned. How many people are there in the government, as a matter of fact? I don't think there are even more than 2 or 3 people from Nimba in the government, besides senators and representatives. I don't even think so. See? So Nimba also has the population. Nimba also has the population required for winning election.
No, his screen is frozen right there again. And that is
if Prince Johnson says I'm going to deliver Nimba to you, you will know that he knows what he's talking about.
Your camera is twisted the other way.
Yeah, it's frozen also.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he has, and besides that too, being when the war was being fought, Johnson was considered as a liberator, protector of the people of Nimba, of many other people too, and the Nimba people are not going to forget that. Those are the kind of things that are holding. Like my grandpa say, how to die. That's Prince Johnson for you. But a lot of people also are worried that Prince Johnson will control Jeremiah Kuhn, who is going to be the vice president, and by that extension, he will control the country. Well, I know Jeremiah Kuhn.
Really? I don't know. Like Jeremiah is a robot. The Jeremiah Cole is a robot will be control.
Like
Or he,
he has his own legacy he has his own legacy. I don't think that he's gonna like say I'm just gonna sit there with preachers and jump. Yeah, Jeremiah Cole is a guy who bootstrap. At a time when he have to, he went to school. And when he got money, he says, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna build a clinic, I'm gonna build this, I'm gonna do that. He did it. A guy who came, so he's not somebody who's gonna be proud. Right now he wants something because politicians are special people. That I'm gonna be a representative of Shay. He became a senator and he says I want to be vice president. He's on track to be that. He's not a puppet. He's not a muppet either. So people maybe they miscalculate. And I think they also miscalculate Prince Johnson. Yeah, I mean, for me, if Prince Johnson was supposed to be on his way by any means now, now he's on sanctions by the U.S. government, right? And by right, he's not supposed to be operating the way he is, but he is. He's doing just that.
and he is 70 years old. 70 years old.
These are hard not to crack. And all those who have tried to crack that nut, they find themselves, with problems. So, I mean, that's just what he is.
Yeah. Now, back to the issue of law and order in a country like ours. Now, there's a word called impunity. And impunity occurs when the laws of the land are not being used. I mean, maybe wisely or timely to nip certain things in the bud. So my thought is, or my follow-up question is, in the absence of investigations, I'm going back to past occurrences and the rest of that, and up to this one. If people don't see anything happening, you do you fear that the issue of impunity will increase in our country?
Well, I mean, there's background noise. I didn't actually hear the question, so if you can, repeat it quickly.
Yeah, let me repeat the question. I said, back to law and order. There's a word called impunity, where people start to just do anything because they know that nothing's going to happen to them, so they just do willy-nilly. Now, my question is, do you think, in the absence of probes or investigations from not just this one, but previous ones that have occurred, in the absence of investigation and results from those investigations, do you fear that our country will see impunity increasing more?
Yeah, well, you see, the thing about our country, everybody, most people now are experiencing war, and we don't want to go back to the war situation. There have been several instances where people have died under different kind of situations, and the Liberian people, by now, and nobody did anything to disturb the peace. Everybody just left it. The people from LRA, the man from the bank, people on the beach, all those kinds of things. Nobody taking action because nobody wants to go back to the time of war. Everybody hoping that the government will do something, but then that people are kind of hesitant to go back to war, and so the government actually does nothing. Have you heard about any investigation around all those people that died during that period? No. Even now, there are people who die on a different case. As a matter of fact, yesterday I saw a body at the police academy on the side street. Is there any investigation on, it could be drugs, it could be jungle justice, but that body, it will stay there for like 3 days and then they will bury it. In other places, there will be investigations to find out what happened, and if there are drugs, what to do about it. Because now the drugs that the children take it, when they take it, they can stand up and sleep on their feet, or if they fall in the grass where ants are, they will be there maybe until they die. Because they take the drugs, they can't control themselves. So that could be an investigation. But all these things, there are no investigations, and there are bodies popping, like in different places over a period. There's some of the bodies people know, some people don't know. Like the time the LRA people died, the Central Bank men died, and other people died of serious circumstances. That nothing came out of it. I don't even know if there were investigations. There weren't
Wow.
any
Yeah,
investigations to say, yeah.
yeah.
So in this case, but there is some modicum of law and order because there are people who go to jail if you don't have the backing. You go to jail if you don't have the backing of the government. For instance, um, take the example with the $100 million cocaine case. I mean, it doesn't even make sense to the average layman. How can $100 million worth of cocaine in possession of the government, and the government was able to pinpoint the people responsible? Those people get freed after a court case, and all of them run away from the country.
Wow. So it sounds
So
like
I mean, like that's
insecurity is a big problem, but the question here is that do you think Prince Johnson's call to have 500 men just to protect him because he feels threatened is being justified because of the increase of insecurity in the country?
well, the Prince Johnson is not going to bring 500 men for nothing. It all depends on what has a lot of, and a lot of things happen behind the scenes too. So it all depends what has happened behind the scenes recently. After this thing happened, what happened behind the scenes? See, so who knows? They bring the 500 men. Well, protesters coming back on Sunday. But one thing I can tell you that besides the people who Chris Johnson will call or say I want 500 men, there just might be 500 men at Chris Johnson's church, or 500 people at Chris Johnson's church or something. Whether he calls them or not, they will be there because, just like Charles Taylor time and the proliferation of warring factions, this is how it starts. So
Yeah.
people go there because of the last minute disadvantage that was taking off Johnson. People will go there to dare those who came to protest. I can bet you on Sunday, if you watch the videos, you see people there after church, before church, or sometime daring those people who came to come again. I don't think they will go there, but that's what's going to happen.
Wow.
Yeah, and Alex and Stanford, that is the danger in the situation we're discussing today, where people will feel so vulnerable and feel insecure, and where they want to have their own quote unquote armies to protect them. I mean, when that happens, look at the situation right now in Sudan. I mean, the government forces fighting or the rapid forces. These are also Sudanese fighting right in the city. Okay, we don't want to see that. We experienced April 6 already. We know what April 6 did to our country. We don't want to see that anymore. For those who have criticized this situation, we join them in a sense where we don't want violence in our country anymore. No matter what the differences are, Ellis and Stanford, we should learn to look at the past and see where we've come from to work towards peace in our country. People will disagree, but we will disagree to agree, not to be so much disagreeable to the extent where you want to do everything in your own way to bring more chaos in the country. I mean, this is not right. We don't want this happening. And that's why I keep going back to the issue of law and order. You said the law, I mean, people going to jail. But who's going to jail? Okay. A lot of people face this on video in violent situation. Are these people being arrested and investigated and probed to get down to the bottom of the situation? We don't know. We have not seen it. So I would say no, because I'm not seeing that. And you have not seen it. Edis have not seen that. I read the papers and listen to the radios. We have not seen that. The issue with former Chief Justice Miss Musu, we still waiting for the results of the investigation for the death of our daughter. So where are we going in this situation of Stanford? The danger lies ahead. How can we avoid what we see unfolding gradually at Stanford? How can we avoid this?
Yes.
I mean, like,
All right. So
that's
let's
why.
go ahead,
Go ahead.
Stanford. Your final
No,
word.
I
Your
mean, that's
final
the
word.
reason
Because we're out of time.
every time we have a government, we have the judiciary, we have the executive, we have, the police and everybody else. We should let the law take the course. In the absence of that, it would become a jungle justice system. And if that happens, then violence will continue. I'm sure that's why they had to sign that coming to the court. But what controls did they put in the coming to the court? How are they going to bring people to book, especially during these elections? Those who pretend violence, how are they going to bring them to book? What are they going to do to punish them for violence? I don't know if that's something I have to go and check out, because I don't know if there's any provisions in that, or whether that will refer to the state, right? For example, what happened the other day? What are the provisions in there to deal with the people who bring violence into the system? I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's something we have to know. And ordinarily, if there's a situation where people see that there's no redress,
Yes.
people will stop caring. People will stop caring about if they commit crimes or if they do not commit crimes. There are people who now can commit crimes and they run away to Sierra Leone, or run away to Freetown, or run away to Ghana, and after maybe 1 or 2, 3 months they come back. There's no system
Yeah.
to track. See, so those are kind of things that like, armed robbery, all this kind of stuff. If small people see that big people are not being caught, then that's it. It's a
Yeah.
problem, like you say.
Yeah. That's a problem right there. That's a problem right there. And so that's how we'll leave it here for today. We'd like to say thank you so much for joining us today, Mr. Peabody. It was a pleasure talking with you to give us insight of what is going on about the security situation in our country and the most recent disruption of service at Senator Prince Johnson's chapel, and the aftermath, the condemnation from groups, the LCC, the Alja, and others, and also the expression of fear and panic that there will not be a repeat. So the unfolding weeks ahead, we look forward to seeing calmness. Hopefully, the security apparatus will probe and do something about it and make sure that such incident will not occur in the future. We're not saying people can protest, but the timing was just wrong, and the premise where it took place was wrong, and that is at a church. And of course, we must respect where we worship. And that is the point here, because Liberians are reminded about the Lutheran Church massacre, where uh, heartless people um, uh, went to a church where people were seeking refuge for fear of being slaughtered, yet they had no regard for the place of God, and they went in there and slaughtered people. So we don't want to be reminded, or we don't want for that to be repeated from now on. And so, Reverend Dada, this is how we leave it. If you have any final word, so that we can close here.
Well, all I can say is Matthew 5:38-39. Jesus said, you've heard it said, eye for eye and tooth for tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other side. It does not mean we should not defend ourselves, but it means we should do everything in our power to work for peace, reconciliation, stability. That's my word for now, and that's my prayer for Liberia.
All right. And then, viewers, please share our video, our podcast video. We are here every Saturday, 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And in Liberia, it is around 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. GMT. And so we'll be back here again next Saturday. Please join us as always and share our video. and may you have a pleasant weekend.